Good morning. It's really nice to see you here. We are Citizen Matters, engaging citizens on what matters. It's the name of our team and also the project. We are working with the quality department of the Stockholm City.
Okay.
Yes. I'm Viva, and this is Kathy, Christina, Anna Maria, Dawn, and Fran. We are from different countries and universities with various backgrounds covering business, health, engineering, and computer science. Our challenge giver, at the very beginning, our challenge giver came to us and they asked, how can we increase Stockholmers' commitment and participation in the city's development? And how can we think of new and develop the working method we have today to listen to the city's citizens think about the service that the city provides? They were wondering, are they doing the right things and are they doing the things right? You can see it's a very broad challenge, and when it's combined with the process of the course, which is two design thinking process, it's not surprised that we're going back and forth, because actually it's not a linear, it's more like a spiral. During the Sprint 1 and Sprint 2, the first half of the course, we talked with our challenge givers, the head of units, method developers, and the service providers. We were trying to figure out what's going on and what they have done and what they are thinking. Then we found that not only citizen matter, but also the employee who working for the city service, they matter. So we thought that maybe it might become changing to spark interest and motivation for Stockholmers and also city staff members to contribute to improving the city service. Here are the 5 concepts that we have at halftime. Patty will give an overview.
These are pictures from our prototypes, and so our first concept was that the Citizen Matters app, which is pretty similar to the already existing Tycktill app. And then the second one is a PROW-style program where top officials from the City of Stockholm participate in work placements at local service units for a week, once a year. And then Observers is a task force responsible for collecting qualitative input from service users all over Stockholm. And then Stockholm Innovate is inspired by the American concept of jury duty. And it is a hub where individuals with diverse backgrounds from Stockholm come together to come up with solutions for complex problems concerning Stockholm. And then the fifth concept is Closing the Cracks, which is a case tracking concept, and it aims to address the challenges in collaboration among different units and levels of service providers. We decided to not go into this after talking with employees from all over the city and the challenge givers again and again and again. And thank you for all the meetings. And we realized that the issue is not really collecting input from citizens, because they do give lots of input. It's the issue is more about passing on this input above the unit level and making these qualitative insights the basis of later on decision making. So we went back through all the interviews and notes, and we will spare you from the back and forth of it all, but we will cover our main insights, and Anna Maria will present those.
Thank you, Kathy. So I'm gonna talk about the insights that we gathered. One thing that we observed was that there are currently surveys that are being conducted. So these surveys came from the City of Stockholm to the Stockholmers, and the main aim of the surveys was for them to know what the Stockholmers want from them and if they're currently doing a good job. Sorry. So what we observed from the surveys was that the surveys are actually limited to certain target groups. For example, people with disabilities. And also we observed that the surveys are currently doing what the City of Stockholm want from the Stockholmers and not necessarily what the Stockholmers want the city to know about them. So another insight that we observed was, I'll explain about this. It's about the reports. So previously, as I said, from the surveys come from the city of Stockholm to the Stockholmers. Then after that, there is this other groups, for example, the Origo groups that are concerned with explaining the surveys and giving out reports. These Origo groups take this and go to the head of units and the district controllers. These people are responsible for writing the reports. These reports that are written here are actually explaining the results of the surveys. So the reports are actually explaining the results of the surveys. And also, these reports that are written here are actually taken to the decision makers on the high level. So the high level decision making is based on the reports written by the head of units and the district controllers. So thank you.
All right, I'll be taking us through the insights from this level here, this red part. This is the service provider and citizen level. So some of the insights we gathered at this level is that they have their own way of collecting information, input from the Stockholmers. This is happening this way because some people don't want to fill surveys, some people are not comfortable with putting down such information, they'd rather just speak through word of mouth. Other people need assistance with filling these surveys. And this basically led us to shifting our goal, which is what Katie mentioned, which was initially how to encourage them to give us feedback. So now our new goal became how we can get this input from them to the decision-making level. You can see a red part here, which is basically showing the barriers and the filtering that happens with this information. And basically, this information sometimes does not completely get there, and some of this information is not easy to even put in reports. So I will take us to the next level. Then we also had organizational insights. The main one, actually the first one, is just visibility is key. By visibility, we mean that we're trying to bridge the gap between the decision makers and the service provider level. This has proven to be very good, useful, and it's been tested. We've tested it, and some units have mentioned that it worked out quite well for them. And this bridging the gaps helps them to understand what really is happening. As you can see, there's people here who are taking care of the elderly and things like that. So they basically have direct communication and contact with the Stockholmers, and they have a good understanding of what really is their pain points and what they need. So another part is avoiding reinventing the wheel and silo thinking. This is another insight that we have gathered, that there is limited sharing of methods, tools, insights, success stories. So this basically is a bit rigid and limits more improvement and building on information from other people, building on their ideas, their research, and basically even the concept that's about to be presented is a build-up of something that was happening well. So it's a build-up of the Farsta unit. That's what inspired us to come up with this. And I think Christina will take us throughout the part of the concept. So then we had to redefine our challenge, which is now, how might we establish a standardized way to use citizen insights as the basis for decision making? So that's my time. I'll move over for Christina.
Yes, so our final solution is called Insiktsrådet, or Insight Council in English. It's a new council, it's non-existing, and it's also new in the part of its engaging levels in the organization that is not collaborating today, at least not in an organized way. They may talk to each other, but it's not organized and it's not standardized, and that is something we want to change. And it's a physical meeting, and as Don mentioned, we're inspired from a unit in Farsta. They have something they call Processråd. That has been a game changer for them. So we took inspiration from them and then we broaden it a bit. And the main purpose will be to standardize these insights that we have heard about. It's about critical success stories, challenges, and ideas. And everything will end up in an Insiktsbanken. And I will go through all these parts in details. So you have seen this already. And we have these, nowadays there are surveys being done, but they are from a city point of view, what the city wants to know. And then the reports are written by the head of unit and the controllers. They are supposed to explain the result and analyzes why the reports look that way does. And as Don mentioned, we found that there is a gap here, that the service provider, we call the service provider, that is the ones that are in direct contact with the users. They actually have a lot of insights. They know what the citizen wants and needs, but that is stuff that is not necessarily captured in these surveys. And there are no, at least not an organized or standardized way to get these insights into the reports. And that's where Insiktsrådet comes in. And we can't really put out every role that is supposed to be in this Insiktsrådet. That's because the organization looks different in different areas, different districts and different units. But what we want, what we know is that we want the ones that is in direct contact with the users and the ones writing the reports, and every critical levels in between. So a key factor for these councils will be a facilitator. We will use a facilitator that is an expert of mediating these kind of meetings. And this is important to make the outcome as effective as possible and also to make it standardized. So the facilitator will focus, make sure that the focus will stay on how can we better serve the citizens, make sure that is a positive atmosphere, and of course to stick to the agenda. And there will be 3 main parts. We will first focus on the critical success stories and wins, and then the challenges. And then the last part is about ideas and suggestions. Each and every part will start with 10 minutes of silent ideating. They write down their ideas and insights on post-it notes. And then these post-it notes will be put on a board like this and read out loud by the facilitator, and that will be followed by a short discussion. So we do it first by the critical success stories, and then the same setup with the challenges, and then in the end with the ideas and suggestions. In the end of the meeting, there will be dot voting. That's what you see when it's red dots, where the participants, they will vote on the insight that they think is the most important to escalate. And after the meeting, all of these insights will be collected into this Insiktsbanken. That is a digital document and a database. And this database, all the ones that are writing their reports, they can go into this database and look for the insights, but also other areas, other units, and other person can go in and look at what is the most important, how can we learn from each other, and stuff like that. So now Fran will go through some limitations and
strengths of our
strengths.
concept. So to summarize, I'll be going over a feedback grid of the type of feedback we received by testing our concept on the different stakeholders. We mostly spoke with our challenge givers. We have spoken with controllers at district and the city level, and also with the heads of units. So mostly all of the people that would be present in this council. So to get us started with the strengths, some of the biggest positive points for our method was that a lot of the stakeholders really liked it. They liked the idea of building relationships by having a physical meeting. A physical meeting allows for people to know each other, right? Rather than an email that nobody recognizes the face, they don't put the name to the face. Then here they're actually building relationships and improving accountability. Also, it's really key for saving time. We believe that this will not only save a lot of time, but time is money. It will also save costs. What this means is that currently a lot of these stakeholders that would be in our council, they're meeting one-on-one, so individual meetings. So that's a lot of meetings between all the different players that need to pass on information to each other, and they have to make it onto the reports. So for this reason, if we now have one council that can replace a lot of these meetings, I'm not saying all, but a lot of them, then we will be saving a lot of time and costs as well associated with people's time. Otherwise, we also have the fact that this is a standardized method. This is a way for every single bit of the city organization to work in similar ways, such that the reports will be more standardized, the insights, the way they're collected is more standardized, and also it would enable knowledge sharing, all thanks to the Insiktsbank and the database. Next up, I'll mention some limitations that were pointed out as maybe weaknesses of our concept. First and foremost, we had to narrow the scope of our concept. This meant that we could not tackle the big, broad challenge we originally got from the city. It was too big to handle. We cannot solve or fix the silo thinking necessarily, but we can target it from a lower level and at least ensure that the key information makes it onto the reports that reach the politicians who make decisions. So the real challenge here is that it's just tackling a small aspect of the original problem, but also we have not considered private services. We know a lot of these units, especially the ones working with people with disabilities or people with social psychiatry needs, they always use private services in conjunction with the public services. So these private services, we did not get the chance to test our prototype on them. So we have not considered them. We don't know how that would look like, how they would incorporate our Insiktsrådet into their daily routines. Then some questions that came up. One was, how can we make sure that everybody wants to participate? So of course, for these meetings, regardless of how many times they happen in a year, we would have to ensure participation. The people who need to be at the meeting must be at the meeting. So how can we motivate and ensure that people will come? Hopefully, we think that our method is strong enough that people will be incentivized, even if in the beginning we might focus only on positive aspects to maybe encourage people to show up and to feel more comfortable sharing. But also later on, we will then navigate challenges and sharing insights to promote also a culture within the city that it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes and learn from each other. So that's part of how we can question that into the Insiktsrådet concept. Now, we also want to encourage people. How can we encourage people to share in this meeting, in the council, to share their insights without feeling judgment or feeling exposed? We know that we have many different hierarchies represented within the council. So it can be difficult to maybe, have these power dynamics. So this is why the role of the facilitator is really important, to flatten out the playing field and make sure that everybody feels comfortable in sharing the insights. And another thought we had was that the individual silent brainstorming will allow for people to share their insights freely without having to first share them out loud. So writing them down on a paper might be helpful in promoting more participation in the meetings. Then finally, we thought, how can we ensure that this method is in fact effective? We don't want to just implement a new thing that nobody will adopt. We want to make sure that we're implementing something that will save time, will be effective, will standardize outcomes, and will allow for the reports to be more complete and efficient in what actually matters, making decisions based on real life insights. So we're all considering these questions. Finally, we also had some ideas and thoughts for future directions. We thought, first and foremost, this is a concept that cannot be just revolutionarily implemented into the city. We need to start small. So maybe implementing it as a pilot project at first might be the first good step to taking it up into the city. And then we can always scale it. In terms of scaling it to other units, districts, or even the entire organization, that will take time. And it will also maybe enable some scaling up to the higher levels in the city. Management levels, they can use their own version of Insiktsrådet. As long as it's standardized, then we'll allow for more communication and better passing on of these insights within the city. Finally, we thought, especially from insights that we gathered with heads of units at services for people with disabilities. These are target groups that notoriously are very difficult to reach. But the service providers, they're mostly concerned not about just including things onto the reports. They feel like the reports they write are already very complete. Then the problem then is the next step with the decision makers, the politicians. So perhaps the politicians are not devoting a lot of time or policy budget to these target groups, like people with disabilities. So the key factor here would be maybe to bring a politician to one of these meetings and get them to talk to the service providers and see the real challenges of why they need more funding or why they need more budget. So these are some of the thoughts we all had, and also some of the suggestions we received from the stakeholders we tested the prototype on. If you would like to have a look again at our in-depth setup of the concept, I'm going to be distributing one booklet through the audience that you can look at, and you can always ask us questions based off of this. And I have 2 booklets, one for each of our challenge givers. That's it for us. Thank you so much. Now you can ask us questions.
Thank you so much, Citizen Matters. We also have some representatives from Stadsledningskontoret here in Stockholm City.